Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Remote Real Estate Investor. I'm Michael Album, and today with me we have our certified agent, Joe Porter, for the Charleston, South Carolina market. He's going to be talking to us today about all the things we need to know as investors before getting involved in that space. So let's get into it. Joe Porter, what's going on, man? Thanks for taking the time to hang out with me today.
Hello, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I am super excited to talk to everybody with you about Charleston, South Carolina. Tell us a little bit, Joe. First off, who you are, where you come from, how long have you been an agent, and are you an investor personally? Quick fire questions to get it started.
Absolutely. Ready to go. So I moved to Charleston to attend the College of Charleston about 22 years ago. And like many other people, never left. I came from the Washington, D.C. area and visited the region one time and never looked back. So shortly after graduating from the College of Charleston, I was one of the many recipients of Ninja loans. Okay, so I knew a ton of people who needed rooms for rent, and I got the bright idea: let's buy a house. And I was working at a bartender out on Folly Beach at the time, and was making tips and. Wells Fargo decided to give me $200,000, from which I bought my first house with. That sort of kicked off my real estate career. Once I found that house, I kind of got the bug. I never stopped looking. So I went in from there and got my real estate license. I'm not a very sales-oriented person, so I knew from there I wanted to embark on sort of the investing side of things. So I signed on as a buyer for the We Buy Ugly Houses franchise, Homevestors.
Ah, okay.
So that sort of gave me the framework of looking how to, analyze a deal, the repairs, and how to present an offer to the seller. And right about that time, I established a brokerage to sort of dovetail my, investing dealings and offers to then list retail. I experienced some success there, and then the bottom of the market fell off, and I just had a bunch of listings and no buyers. At that point, I guess this was around, 2007, 8, 9. I came up with the bright idea to start buying houses. So I put together a little mean machine of a crew with the idea to have the acquisitions, improvement, and management all under one umbrella. And we started buying houses. Okay, so the first house I bought was in North Charleston. It was a single-family detached home for $12,000.
What?
Yeah. Someone had yanked all the copper plumbing out of it, all the copper wires. It had been, sitting vacant as a foreclosure, owned by, the Bank of New York. And so that was the first house. And we went in, renovated it rather quickly, and, rented it out. And that was my proof of concept. I said, this works out great. At the time, I rented it out for $800 a month. Today, I still have that house, almost 15 years later. And it's a $1,200 a month rental for me.
And what did you spend on the rehab? Do you recall?
At this point, I did everything myself. I knew enough to be dangerous, but now I know I really didn't know anything about renovations and construction. So I cut some corners, but and I was buying used materials, things like that. I spent about $7,000 on the rehab.
So you bought it for 12, put 7 into it, and then rented it for $850. Dude.
Yes, and didn't take an accountant to like those returns. Yeah.
That's incredible. I don't think I've ever heard of it. Like that's like a 4% plus property.
Yes, indeed. So after that, I brought in more people on the construction side to help me out. We put a crew together, and I continued to participate in the labor We bought one house after another. And then, we did about 10, 12 houses a year. And I currently own and manage about 55 rental units in the Charleston area. So they're all scattered site, single family detached. So I spent a solid about 8 years just doing that, accumulating. And then since the market has shifted, I've focused more on my brokerage activities. I brought my wife Claire in on the business, and she helps with buying and selling. So last year we did about 15 million in transactions, about 50 sides. Year before we did about 14 million. So right now we are solely focused on the brokerage activity. And if something should present itself from an acquisition standpoint, we jump on it. Our business model is, we'll present when we go on a listing appointment, we'll present an array of options. So, first option is, hey, I see what you got. We could sell it as is for this price. We could also help you with some of the repairs, and we'll pitch in on the repair costs, bring our crew in to help maximize the cost of or maximize the value. We do a cost value approach there. And then the third and final option, when it's appropriate, we can buy it directly from you, no commissions, no closing costs, on your timeline, whatever you want to do there. So doing that, we'll add a couple to the portfolio. We'll buy maybe one or two a year that will be flips, and then we'll list about 50 a year.
Joe, this is amazing, man. There's so much here that I want to unpack. We'll have to have you back on just to talk about that side of your business. But I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk about Charleston as a market so that all of our listeners can get an idea of what they could expect, why they should be excited about the market. So can you give us just some high-level overview of, are people moving to Charleston? And if so, why? What companies are headquartered there? What jobs are available for folks?
Yes, so the secret is out on Charleston. It is currently, I think, ranked the 12th fastest growing metro area in the United States. We have about 38 people a day moving to the region, especially over the past 2 years. Wow. We've seen a bit of a migration of both, people trying to leave more crowded, urban environments, or baby boomers coming to retirement age. So those are the type of migration that we're seeing in the area. Charleston, people might know it as, the historic downtown. 20 years ago, our economy was based on tourism and hospitality. So we were, just in that service sector, and that was about it. But since then, our economy has exploded. We now are anchored in manufacturing. So the state of South Carolina is very sort of, company friendly. We're offering incentives for companies to move here and set up shop. There's not a lot of labor unions or, it's a right to work state. So companies like that. So that's lured Boeing from Seattle to North Charleston. Volvo is setting up here. Mercedes, Daimler, Chrysler, Bosch, Nucor. Those are examples of some of the companies here in the Charleston area in the manufacturing sector. We also have a military presence. Okay, we have a joint base that's Air Force. We have a naval weapons station and a nuclear submarine school based in Goose Creek, which is just 15 minutes north of Charleston. And there's also going to be developing one of the larger Coast Guard schools here. So we have military. And then education, my alma mater, College of Charleston, the Citadel, and the Medical School of South Carolina. That along with our port activity. So Charleston has just completed a port deepening. So that makes us the deepest port on the East Coast. So lots of importing, exporting is bringing a bunch of, auxiliary businesses with it to the
Yeah.
area.
Oh my gosh, that's really interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, so
So, okay.
there's a lot happening here.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. Joe, I'm wondering if you could do a screen share and kind of give everybody who's watching this online a visual tour of the city, if you will. And if you could share with us, where do you like to look for your investments and where should folks be looking for theirs based on if they're targeting cash flow or some appreciation potential?
So one of the things I like about Charleston is, our submarkets. Okay, this is a unique region that's geographically defined by all this water here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so if you could see my cursor, here we have the downtown peninsula. Okay, so everybody knows the historic Charleston downtown. There is a district within the peninsula downtown that's been designated for short-term rentals. Okay.
Okay.
And as a result, prices are up. Your average property will sell for over $1 million. But that's situated in the middle of the peninsula here where, vacationers, guests can come and, walk the city, which is very walkable. You can see it's not very big, the downtown peninsula.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that makes Charleston so unique is the fact that they've kept all their historic buildings. So there's buildings, 1800s, just beautiful along the Battery here, which makes it a big attraction. They also have lots of rules to what you can and can't do with properties. So, for example, we have a height restriction. The buildings cannot be higher than the tallest church steeple. So they call it the Holy City. You look at the skyline and you see nothing but church steeples, downtown. So as a result, they have lifted the height restriction. We call this the neck area, which is part of the peninsula that sort of, isn't very wide. And so there's a bunch of growth here in this area where, there's some high rises, some more development happening. As opposed to the downtown area, which, was full about 200 years ago.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have your barrier islands. Okay. This is a great place for short-term rentals. So we have Folly Beach out here. We have Kiowa Island. And to the north here, we have Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island. These are excellent places to invest in that beach house. Okay. I got one on Folly Beach where it's a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath, where we'll do $100,000 in gross rental revenue this year from our season that's getting ready to start in mid-March and go through September.
Holy smokes. And what'd you buy it for, Joe?
I bought that house for just over $1 million.
That's incredible.
And then we have our more suburban communities to the south, James Island. That's where I live most of the year. Johns Island, one of the largest sea islands on the East Coast. That's mostly residential and upcoming area. A lot of this, you could drive not very far outside of Charleston, say 30 minutes to get you through Johns Island and to more rural places like Guatemala, where you think you're in the middle of nowhere, but you're still a stone's throw away from Charleston. One area of significant growth would be the Somerville area, okay? So some of these manufacturers that I'm talking about, Volvo, Chrysler, Daimler, they are setting up shop along this I-26 corridor. And so as a result, we're seeing a lot of newer developments such as Next In, nicely done, new schools that are becoming great areas to invest. For example, you might see a 3-bedroom, single-family home, new construction in the mid 300s, low 400s come available. That type of property would rent for about $2,200 a month.
This is great. This is great. And do you have more like entry level price point neighborhoods and suburbs?
Yes. So entry level for Charleston would be right around that mid $300,000.
Okay.
So there's areas. Mount Pleasant would be the most sort of desirable suburb. The entry level there is about 700,000. James Island entry level about 400,000. Now Johns, we still are in the 300s. And then areas North Charleston, this area of Goose Creek. This outlined area in gray here is the Naval Weapons Station. So this is a great area for rentals and buying newer homes in Goose Creek, where you can get a house in around 300 to 350,000 and have a bunch of good renters here. There's also some areas of north and the south end of North Charleston that are quite popular. This area is referred to as Park Circle, sort of old North Charleston community developed in the 40s, 50s. And then these areas here where I own a bunch of rental properties, this is called Dorchester Terrace, Wayland, where you could still get a house for under 200,000. This was all developed in the 30s and 40s. Because we had the huge naval base here on the Cooper River. So the houses are 80 years old, but they represent a good location and high demand for rentals.
Fantastic. And Joe, can you give everyone listening and watching an idea of some traditional things to be aware of if they're going to be thinking about investing in Charleston? So, for instance, how do property taxes work? And then what kind of natural hazards or catastrophes are known to hit the Charleston area and that people should be aware of?
Okay, well, I'll start with the second question here. Of course, with all the water, okay, flood insurance, okay. Lots of properties, lots of areas are in flood. Well, everything's in a flood zone, but a lot are in AE, V zones that would represent, flood risk, and therefore most properties carry flood insurance.
Okay.
Certainly the ones on the barrier islands do. Downtown, there are certain areas to be aware of where there's drainage issues. However, in the suburbs here, you get a little bit out of this 526 corridor here. Your typical flood insurance policy in an AE zone will run you about $700 a year, so nothing cost prohibitive. However, if you get into some of these beach or low-lying areas, you're looking at $2,500, $5,000 a year, as well as the risk of flooding. So there's always something to be aware of. That's one of the first questions I'll ask property owners or sellers. Okay, do you have an elevation certificate detailing how high your house is in relationship to the base flood elevation? And how much is your flood insurance policy? And is that policy assumable? So that's one thing to be aware of in this area. Property taxes, to address that, are I would say relatively affordable or cheaper than other areas. So your average price home, say $350,000, which is the median price here in Charleston, your property taxes will be about $5,500 a year. So I think that's relatively pretty, affordable.
Got it. So like 1.5%, 1.4% roughly of the purchase price.
Correct. Yeah. And so we do a point of sale assessment. So a property's value is reassessed at the point of purchase, and it's assessed for that amount.
Okay.
And then from there, there's a cap. It can't, the value cannot go up more than 10%, and then it's milled down from there. So it's not that there's a cap that it'll jump 10%. It's the assessed value. So once you're there, you're locked in. Basically, and it'll incrementally increase if the market continues to do so.
Okay, got it. And everyone's talking right now, we're recording this middle of February, about how crazy and red hot the market seems to be. And we always like to remind folks that, hey, real estate is done locally. And so while one market might be red hot, others might be less so. So talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in the Charleston market. How much supply do you have? How fast are these homes going for? And kind of at what percentage of the list price are they moving at?
So we've had a similar supply and demand dynamic as most markets. We have very little supply and high demand. Currently, in our Tri-County area in the MLS, there's about 900 properties for sale. If you strip out new construction or proposed construction, it comes closer to 500. Okay, that would represent under 1 month of inventory, so about 3 weeks.
Wow.
So, if another house doesn't come online in 3 weeks, we'll be down to zero. So I've never seen it this low. So it's definitely inventory is constrained. As a result, we've had basically 22% price appreciation over last year. So prices are skyrocketing. And it is a tough market. But investors who are willing to, take on maybe a house that needs repairs or act quickly or have the ability to, go in on an offer cash, they certainly have a leg up in this environment.
Okay. And what are you coaching your buyers to do to win offers?
Act quickly, of course. Sometimes we'll waive appraisals or put in appraisal buffers, stating that, if we are going to use financing, we'll be able to kick in extra money towards the down payment. Sometimes we'll pitch a cash offer and be able to submit proof of funds, and saying we're willing to close with cash, and then we'll substitute with financing at the closing. Other times we'll, say we're, based on a walkthrough inspection or, you do enough due diligence up front that we'll buy the house as is. Average days on market are about 3. So the speed of which you act is very important. And then average selling price to list price is about 98%. So, if you're going to, make an offer, you better bring it. That's some of the things we do to coach our buyers in this market.
Makes total sense and great insights. Joe, I'm curious to get your opinion, kind of thoughts around, as you're looking at properties to post to Roofstock, because you're obviously our certified agent out in the Charleston market. What is it that you're looking for? What makes a great investment property in your opinion?
One thing I'm super excited about is Roofstock short-term rental market. Okay, and we don't have Charleston online quite yet, but we're working towards it. But I think some of the higher rate of return will be in this Isle of Palms, Folly Beach, Kiowa, on the short-term rental side, as well as downtown Charleston. The numbers that are being produced here are amazing. So once we get the short-term rental stuff up and running, I'd love for everybody to, hone in on some of those properties, because, we have properties on Kiowa, for example, that are grossing well over $350,000 a year on a short-term basis.
Holy smokes. And what are the list prices on some of those, just to give people some perspective?
So that particular one I'm referencing, it's called the Ocean Blue, and it's listed on our website, the KiowaIslandGetaways.com. And that was $1 million. It was $1.4 million attached. So it's condo regime style, oceanfront home that the owners spent $1 million on the interior. I mean, this thing looks like it's out of Southern Living.
Holy
magazine.
Smokes.
And that's on Kiowa Island, which is a resort. I don't know if anybody saw the PGA Championship on the ocean course here this past year. Kiowa Island has 5 amazing golf courses They have great amenities, pools, and a very nice beach. It's very walkable. There's parks and paths throughout the island, and so that's a nice spot for everybody to know about. But back on the majority of people doing the long-term buy and hold investing, I am on the outskirts of Charleston. Okay, so I'm looking at this more entry-level pricing for the area, around 350 and below. I'm looking for some of the newer builds. I'm looking for houses that are not in flood zones, not within expensive HOA areas, and ones that are within the path of progress. So, for example, this Somerville area here that is continuing to grow and flourish. I'm posting things in Goose Creek by the Air Force Base, Hanahan, that have good school districts. I'm posting those type of properties where there's been a strong demand for that type of housing and strong growth that area.
Love it. Joe, this has been super insightful, man. I'm curious to know, though, in your opinion, how can buyers be best prepared to work with you in the Charleston market?
Well, I think, come and visit, come take a peek for yourselves. And I'd be happy to show people around and, show them the different areas. Back to my point about these different submarkets. Okay, so, we have these islands and submarkets, and each one has its own little flavor. Each one has its, is unique for different reasons. So it really depends on, whether the investor is, purely return driven, or maybe they want to have a place they can stay sometimes when they visit. There's a lot of different angles here. So it really comes down to the investor's, needs. And, from there, we could turn them on to different areas. So come and visit, come hang out with me. That would be one suggestion. And then, make sure to have all your ducks in the row and, make sure, of course, financing, if you're going to finance a property, proof of funds ready to go, and be ready to pull the trigger. I'll be able to do a walkthrough inspection. I'm underwriting these properties for repairs. I have a strong knowledge base of, the rental market and know when it's appropriate to push on that rental price and where we can eke out some more money and have a pretty good understanding of, where the activity is and where the growth is going to be. So, give me a call. You can get in touch with me, at my website, lighthousecharleston.com, or email me at joe@lighthousecharleston.com, and we can, further the conversation. But, in short, you have to act fast and throw your hat in the ring to get in. I do think that, we had a little bit of a lull, as many markets did, end of December, early January, but then it, really started to pick up this first year. Lots of activity, more houses are being built, sellers now, we're trying to convince, people who are ready to exit the market to do so. There'll be more opportunities coming. And so I'm on the MLS checking every single day, what's being listed, and posting those opportunities straight to Roofstock. So you're getting the, up-to-date information, because once something's posted, you'll probably see it go pending within a day or two. You'll see multiple offer scenarios. One other tool we're using, we're introducing escalation clauses. So we're setting a cap on the purchase price based on, what type of return you want or the deal itself, where it's priced. And we're saying we'll beat the next offer by, depending on the price point, $1,000, $5,000. And so that way you're not going in blind, leaving money on the table. We're just escalating that purchase price.
That's great. Joe, this has been super insightful. I know I'm getting really excited about the Charleston market. Definitely want to be in touch with you. Thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you're welcome. And we'll talk soon, I'm sure. Take care. Okay, everyone, that was our episode. A big thank you to Joe for coming on. I know I got super excited about the Charleston market. I need to do some more research on my own. Looking forward to seeing many of you out there. As always, if you liked the episode, please feel free to leave us a rating or review wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Happy investing.